The first time I saw him again, I walked right past him. No dramatic music. No instant recognition. No moment where the world suddenly stopped spinning. Just another Thursday evening in the tiny town I had spent 7 years trying to forget. If someone had told me that my childhood best friend was standing less than 3 feet away from me, I would have laughed. Because the boy I remembered no longer existed. And apparently neither did I. Coming back to Ashwood hadn't been my idea. My mom had called on a Monday morning while I was halfway through answering emails in my apartment in Seattle. Dad's been overworking again. He always overworks. This time he actually hurt himself. That got my attention. What happened? Nothing life-threatening. He tore something in his shoulder. Doctor says no lifting for at least a month. I leaned back in my chair. So. I already knew where this conversation was going. We could really use another pair of hands. I have work. You work from home. I still have work. I know. Silence. Then she used the one weapon guaranteed to work. We miss you. 3 days later, I was driving 12 hours back to the town I'd promised myself I would never live in again. Ashwood looked smaller. Not because anything had changed. Because I had. The grocery store where Mom used to buy ice cream every Friday. The basketball court where I lost more games than I won. The old movie theater that had been closed since I was 15. Everything looked exactly the way memory had left it. Only quieter. Slower. Like time had forgotten this place. Dad hugged me with one arm. The city didn't make you soft. I'll take that as a compliment. It is. Mom hugged me twice. You've lost weight. I haven't. You have. Dad literally just said the opposite. I trust my eyes. Nothing had changed. By Friday afternoon, I desperately needed air. Helping Dad around the hardware store wasn't difficult. It was just repetitive. Boxes, invoices, customers who somehow remembered me as a teenager. You used to be so little. I was 17. So little. I escaped before someone else commented on how much I'd grown. The lake was only a 5-minute walk away. It had always been my favorite place. When I was a kid, Chase and I practically lived there during summer. Fishing, skipping rocks, building ridiculous forts that never survived more than a week. We'd been convinced we'd stay best friends forever. Kids believed forever was easy. Adults knew better. I leaned against the wooden railing overlooking the water. The evening breeze felt colder than I remembered. Still comes here, huh? The voice came from behind me. I turned. A man about my age stood holding a tackle box. Tall, athletic, dark hair tucked beneath a faded baseball cap. Light stubble, kind eyes. He smiled politely. Sorry. I thought you were someone else. No problem. He nodded once, then walked past me toward the dock. I watched him for a second before looking back at the lake. Something about him felt familiar. Not his face, his posture, the way he rolled one shoulder before sitting down. Little habits, tiny movements, the kind you only noticed after knowing someone for years. I shook the thought away. Coincidence. Nothing more. Half an hour later, I stopped by the only coffee shop in town. It used to be a bookstore. Now it served expensive coffee and homemade pie. Progress, apparently. I had just picked up my drink when someone bumped into me. Oh, sorry. I looked up. The same guy from the lake. He laughed. Okay. Now this is getting weird. I smiled. Ashwood isn't exactly huge. True. He glanced at my coffee. Black. Always. Brave. You. He lifted his cup. Too much caramel. I can respect honesty. He laughed again. It was a good laugh. Relaxed. Easy. I'm Cody. I hesitated for half a second. Ryan. He held out his hand. Nice to officially meet you. His handshake felt oddly familiar. Firm. Confident. Almost automatic. Like we'd done it before. Impossible. Passing through? He asked. Helping my parents for a while. The hardware store? I blinked. You know them. Everyone knows everyone here. Fair. He nodded toward the window. I've got to get back. Farm. His eyebrows lifted. How'd you know? Lucky guess. He smiled. See you around, Ryan. Probably. I watched him leave. For some reason, I kept watching until his truck disappeared around the corner. That evening, Mom asked the question I should have expected. So, have you seen anyone you know? Not really. No old classmates? I've only been here 2 days. She smiled. You never know. I shrugged. Most people probably wouldn't recognize me. Mom looked amused. You'd be surprised. I had no idea how right she was. The next morning, Dad handed me a delivery order. Can you take these supplies out to Bennett Farm? Bennett? Yeah. New owners. They've had it for years now. I loaded the truck and followed the GPS. The farm was beautiful, completely different from the neglected property I vaguely remembered. Fresh fences, new barns, perfectly maintained fields. Someone had poured years into restoring it. I parked near a large workshop. Hello, a voice answered from inside. Be right there. A moment later, Cody walked out carrying a toolbox. He stopped when he saw me. No way, I laughed. Either this town is incredibly small, or we're being stalked by fate. He finished the sentence for me. We both laughed. I didn't know this was your place. Most people don't. He signed the delivery paperwork before looking back at me. You in a hurry? Not really. You want coffee? I've already had 2. So have I. We stood there for a second. Then he grinned. Let's have a third. For reasons I couldn't explain, I said yes. Neither of us realized we were sitting across from the person who had once been the most important friend in our entire childhood. And neither of us recognized him. I've already had 2 coffees. So I probably shouldn't have another. Cody shrugged. I own the coffee machine. You own a coffee machine? I own the workshop. That wasn't my question. He laughed. I'll make you something stronger. I raised an eyebrow. Tea. That's disappointing. I hear that a lot. I followed him inside. The workshop was enormous. Half of it was filled with farm equipment. The other half looked more like a mechanic's garage, with organized tool walls, workbenches, and shelves that somehow managed to stay perfectly neat. You actually know where everything is? I asked. I put everything back. You scare me. My sister says the same thing. He disappeared into a small office and returned with 2 mugs. No fancy coffee shop today. I'll survive. We sat on the wooden porch overlooking the fields. For a while, neither of us spoke. The silence wasn't uncomfortable. It was easy. So, Cody finally said, Seattle. Yeah. You like it. I do. But, I smiled. There's always a but, isn't there? There usually is. I looked across the fields before answering. It's busy. Too busy. Sometimes. You don't sound convinced. I love my job. That's not what I asked. I laughed. You ask dangerous questions. My sister says that too. You mention your sister a lot. She's my business partner. Really? Unfortunately. I laughed. I thought you loved her. I do. Then why unfortunately? Because she tells me when I'm being an idiot. Sounds useful. It isn't. It probably is. He sighed dramatically. See? You sound exactly like her. We spent almost an hour talking. About work, travel, favorite movies, the worst jobs we'd ever had. Felt strangely effortless. Normally, I needed time before conversations became comfortable. With Cody, it felt like we'd skipped the awkward stage completely. At one point, he leaned back in his chair. Can I ask you something? Depends. You always this easy to talk to? The question surprised me. I don't think so. What? I was just wondering. About? Nothing. He looked away. You sure? Yeah. He clearly wasn't. Before I left, he offered to show me the property. Come on. You've seen the farm? Years ago. It doesn't look anything like it used to. He wasn't exaggerating. Every building had been restored. New roofs, fresh paint. Even the old orchard looked healthy again. You did all this? Over 6 years. By yourself. My sister helped. And a lot of coffee. I smiled. You really built all of this. He looked around quietly. Yeah, I guess I did. There wasn't arrogance in his voice. Only quiet pride. I respected that. As we walked toward the old barn, I noticed a faded carving in one of the wooden fence posts. 2 initials. R+C. I stopped. Cody noticed. What? I pointed. You know who did that? He walked closer. Huh. I've never noticed it before. He brushed dirt away with his thumb. Kids, probably. Probably. For some reason, I couldn't stop looking at it. R&C. Tugged at something buried deep in my memory. Not enough to remember. Just enough to feel familiar. You okay? Cody asked. Yeah. I just... What? It feels like I've been here before. He smiled. Maybe you have. Maybe. As I climbed into my truck, he rested one arm against the door. You busy tomorrow? I don't think so. There's a town festival. I groaned. Oh no. What? I forgot Ashwood did those. You used to come? When I was a kid. You should come tomorrow. I don't know. There'll be food. Bribery. Absolutely. I pretended to think about it. I'll consider it. Liar. I am considering it. You already decided yes. I laughed. How do you know? You smiled. I hadn't realized I had. Saturday evening, the entire town seemed to be gathered in the square. Music played from temporary speakers. Children ran between food stands. Someone was grilling burgers. Someone else was selling homemade pies. It looked exactly like every small-town festival I'd ever tried to avoid. Ryan. I turned. Cody waved from across the square. He was standing beside a woman with the same dark hair and the same smile. You actually came. I was promised food. My strongest argument. He turned toward the woman. This is my sister, Emma. She smiled warmly. So you're Ryan. I am. Cody's mentioned you. I looked at him. You've known me for 2 days. He rubbed the back of his neck. Yeah. Emma smirked. He doesn't usually invite strangers to things. I don't. She laughed. No. He looked slightly embarrassed. Huh. I couldn't explain why, but hearing that made me strangely happy. Emma excused herself to help at one of the food stands, leaving the two of us alone again. So, you hungry? Always. We wandered through the festival together, arguing over which food stand had the best barbecue. At one point we passed the old baseball field. I slowed down without realizing it. Cody noticed immediately. You played. When I was little. He nodded. I used to come here too. Really? Almost every weekend. I looked at him. Funny. What is? I don't remember seeing you. He frowned. Neither do I. For a brief moment, both of us stood there looking at the empty field, as if trying to remember something that stayed just out of reach. Then someone called Cody's name from across the festival. He waved back. I'll be right there. He looked at me. Don't disappear. I won't. I watched him jog toward a group of locals who greeted him like family. Standing there alone, I suddenly realized something. For someone I'd only met yesterday, I was already looking for him every time he walked away. I didn't disappear, mostly because I had nowhere else to be. I stood near the baseball field with a paper plate of barbecue, watching families drift between the food stalls while the sun slowly disappeared behind the trees. Ashwood looked different at night, softer. The old streetlights cast warm pools of light across the sidewalks, and for the first time since coming back, the town didn't feel quite so small. Still here. I turned. Cody walked over carrying 2 lemonades. I figured you'd need one. You figured right. He handed me the cup before looking toward the field. I spent half my childhood over there. So did I. He smiled. I wasn't very good. I wasn't either. You played. Little League. What position? Shortstop. He laughed. I was catcher. Seriously? Yeah. That's funny. What? I don't remember the catcher. There were a lot of kids. True. Still, something about the conversation bothered me. We'd grown up in the same town, gone to the same school, played on the same baseball field, yet neither of us remembered the other. The odds seemed strangely low. We wandered toward the lake as the music from the festival faded behind us. It's quieter here. It always was. The words came out before I thought about them. Cody glanced sideways. You said that like you've stood here 100 times. I probably did. When? When I was a kid. He nodded slowly. I practically lived here. So did I. We both laughed. Guess everybody did. I guess. A wooden dock stretched across the water. Halfway down it stood an old bench. The second I saw it, a memory flashed through my head. Two boys, 12 years old, trying to balance on the backrest instead of sitting normally. One of them slipping into the lake. The other laughing so hard he couldn't breathe. The memory disappeared as quickly as it came. You okay? Cody's voice pulled me back. Yeah. You looked somewhere else. I just remembered something. What? I looked at the bench again. I used to come here with my best friend. He smiled. What was his name? I hesitated. Chase. His expression didn't change. Still friends. No. What happened? Life. He nodded quietly. That happens. What about you? My best friend. Yeah. He looked out across the lake. We stopped talking after graduation. What was his name? For a second, he looked like he was trying to remember. Then he laughed softly. Ryan. My heart skipped. There are a lot of Ryans. There are. I smiled. I guess that's why I started introducing myself as Ryan Brooks instead of just Ryan. He looked at me. You always use your last name? In the city. Why? Too many Ryans. Makes sense. Neither of us noticed how close we were standing now. The festival fireworks began without warning. The first explosion echoed across the lake. Colored light reflected across the water. I forgot they still did fireworks. They never stopped. We both looked up. For a while, neither of us said anything. The silence felt comfortable, almost familiar. My mom asked about you. I looked at him. Your mom asked about me? I mentioned meeting someone new. And she wanted to know your last name. I laughed. Already? It's a small town. What did you tell her? Ryan. And I realized I never asked. You didn't. So, Brooks. He repeated it quietly. Ryan Brooks. Something changed in his expression. Not recognition, just thoughtfulness. What? Nothing. You keep saying that. I know. But something's clearly bothering you. He rubbed the back of his neck. I've had this weird feeling since we met. The familiar thing? Yeah. You still can't place it? No. He looked almost frustrated. It's driving me crazy. After the fireworks ended, we started walking back toward the town square. The streets were crowded again. People stopped Cody every few minutes. Hey, Cody. Morning, Cody. Good seeing you, Cody. He somehow knew everyone. You really are the mayor. He laughed. My sister says that too. I believe her. An elderly man approached us carrying 2 folding chairs. Cody. Mr. Dawson. The older man smiled. You introducing your friend? Yeah. This is Ryan. The old man's eyes landed on me. He frowned, then frowned harder. Ryan. He looked back at Cody, then at me again. You boys related? Both of us answered at the same time. No. The old man chuckled. Could have fooled me. He walked away before either of us could respond. Cody watched him go. That's the third person. The third. Who looked at us strangely. I thought about the woman at the coffee shop. The man by the road. Now this. Maybe we just have familiar faces. He didn't look convinced. Emma found us near one of the food trucks. There you are. You looking for me? No. She smiled. I'm looking for both of you. Us. She nodded. Mom wants to meet Ryan. I blinked. Me? She heard Cody's been spending time with someone. Cody groaned dramatically. It's been 2 days. Emma folded her arms. You know what mom's like. Unfortunately, I was about to find out. As we walked toward the Bennett family picnic table, I had no idea that the woman waiting there had once packed lunches for 2 little boys every summer. One of them was her son. The other was me. And unlike Cody, she had always been much better at remembering faces. Mom, Emma called. This is Ryan. The woman standing beside the picnic table turned around with a warm smile already on her face. It disappeared the moment she looked at me. Not completely, just enough. For 3 full seconds she didn't say a word. Then she smiled again. Well, she said softly. It's nice to meet you. You too. She shook my hand. Her eyes lingered on my face just a little longer than normal. You're visiting? Helping my parents for a few weeks. The hardware store? I laughed. Is there anything people don't know around here? Not really. Cody chuckled beside me. I told you. His mother kept looking at me. Not rudely, just thoughtfully, as if trying to place me. It wasn't the first time someone had done that, but with her it felt different, almost personal. Dinner turned into one long conversation, mostly between Cody's parents and Emma. They asked about Seattle, my work, the weather, whether I planned on staying in Ashwood after my parents retired. Probably not, I admitted. City life, Cody's father asked. I've gotten used to it. His father nodded. I tried city life once. What happened? I lasted 9 days. Everyone laughed. I couldn't sleep. Too noisy. No, he smiled. Too many people. At one point Cody got up to grab more drinks. Emma followed him, leaving me sitting across from his mother. For the first time all evening we were alone. She looked at me carefully. Ryan. Yes. Were you born here? The question surprised me. I was. And then you moved away? After high school? She nodded slowly. I thought so. Something about her expression changed. Not recognition. More like curiosity. I'm sorry if this sounds strange. It's okay. Did you ever have blonde hair? I blinked. When I was little. Her eyebrows lifted. Really? My hair got darker around middle school. What? She smiled politely. Oh, nothing. There it was again. Nothing. Everyone kept saying nothing. On the drive home, I couldn't stop thinking about it. Mom noticed immediately. You're quiet. Tired. She gave me the look every parent perfected. The real reason? I sighed. I met someone. Her smile appeared instantly. Oh, it's not like that. I didn't say anything. You were about to. I absolutely was. I laughed. His name's Cody. She frowned slightly. Cody. Yeah. Last name. Bennett. She looked out the windshield for a second. Then back at me. Bennett? That's what I said. Huh. What? Nothing. I groaned. Please don't start. She laughed. I just haven't heard that family name in years. They own the farm outside town. I know. You know them. We used to. Something about the way she answered made me glance over. What do you mean? Oh. She waved a hand dismissively. Years ago. Before you were born? No. She smiled strangely. When you were little. The next morning I found Dad organizing inventory. Dad. You remember the Bennett family? He looked up immediately. Of course. You knew them well? He smiled. Very. How? He looked genuinely confused. Ryan. What? You spent half your childhood over there. I stared. What? You and Chase. The name hit me immediately. Chase. Yeah. You boys were inseparable. I frowned. Wait. I thought the Bennetts bought the farm recently. Dad laughed. No. They've always lived there. What? They bought the neighboring property. I felt my stomach tighten. No. Dad leaned against the counter. Why are you asking? I hesitated. I've been spending time with Cody. He nodded. Good kid. Cody. Yeah. Not Chase. Dad looked even more confused. They're the same person. I stared at him. What? His full name's Chase Cody Bennett. The room suddenly felt very quiet. He stopped using Chase in high school. Dad shrugged. Said too many people called him Chase. So everyone switched to Cody. I couldn't speak. Ryan. My mind raced. The lake, the baseball field, the familiar laugh, the carved fence, the effortless conversations, the strange feeling I'd known him forever, because I had, for nearly 10 years, and somehow, neither of us had recognized the other. That afternoon I drove to the farm without calling first. I wasn't even sure what I planned to say. The workshop doors were open. Cody was repairing an old tractor. He looked up when he heard my truck. Hey! I climbed out. We need to talk. He wiped grease from his hands. His smile disappeared. Everything okay? I talked to my dad. So? He knows you. Cody looked puzzled. I'd hope so. He knew you before yesterday. So did half the town. No. I took another step closer. He knew you when you were Chase. Silence. Complete silence. Cody didn't move. The wrench slowly slipped from his fingers onto the concrete floor. He stared at me. What did you just say? I know your full name. His expression changed instantly. Confusion. Shock. Then something deeper. Who told you? My dad. He swallowed. What exactly did he tell you? That you used to go by Chase. His breathing slowed. And that we spent our childhood together. Another long silence. He looked away, then back at me. His voice was barely above a whisper. Ryan. Yeah. You mean? I nodded slowly. I think I'm your childhood best friend. He stared at me as though the entire world had suddenly stopped making sense. And for the first time since we'd met, he looked at me not as a stranger, but as someone he was desperately trying to remember. Neither of us spoke. The workshop suddenly felt much too quiet. Outside, I could hear birds somewhere in the orchard. Inside, all I could hear was Cody breathing. No, he finally said. His voice wasn't angry, just confused. That can't be right. My dad seemed pretty sure. He rubbed both hands over his face. My best friend moved away after graduation. I did. No. He looked at me again. You don't look anything like him. I was 17. So was I. We're 26 now. He laughed once. It wasn't a happy laugh. I've been standing here talking to you for days. I know. And you never said anything? I didn't know either. That seemed to surprise him. You didn't recognize me? I shook my head. Not until yesterday. When? When you accidentally called yourself Chase. He looked away. I haven't used that name in years. I know. Another silence settled between us. It wasn't awkward anymore. It was heavy, filled with years that neither of us knew how to bridge. I don't believe it. Cody walked toward an old workbench and leaned both hands against it. I mean, he laughed again. This is insane. It kind of is. My best friend. He looked back at me. Was 5'8". I grew. You had blonde hair. It got darker. You wore glasses. I had laser surgery. He blinked. Oh, I also stopped wearing those terrible flannel shirts. He smiled despite himself. You loved those shirts. My mother bought them. You wore them anyway. I didn't have a choice. For the first time since I'd arrived, he laughed the way I remembered. Louder, unfiltered. For a split second, he looked exactly like the boy I'd spent every summer with. He walked slowly around me, not in a strange way, more like he was comparing memories with reality. You really are Ryan. I really am. You've got the same eyes. I do. I didn't notice. What changed? Everything else. He folded his arms. Smile. What? Smile. I laughed. There. His expression froze. There it is. What? I remember that. The smile. You always smiled with one corner first. I do. You still do. I hadn't even realized. He disappeared into the office without another word. A minute later, he returned carrying an old cardboard box. What is that? I don't know. You don't know? I think. He knelt on the floor. I think these are old photos. Dust covered the lid. He opened it carefully. Hundreds of photographs. Report cards. Drawings. Birthday cards. 10 years of someone's childhood. We both knelt beside the box. This is. He picked up one picture. My 8th birthday. Another. School trip. Then another. His movements suddenly stopped. He stared. Didn't blink. Slowly, he handed me the photograph. 2 boys, maybe 11 years old, standing knee-deep in the lake. One was laughing at the camera. The other held up an enormous fish with both hands. I recognized myself immediately. The second boy looked exactly like the Chase I remembered. Messy blonde hair, wide grin, sunburned nose. Oh my God, Cody whispered it. Not me, him. He picked up another photograph. Us building a treehouse. Another. Us sitting on bicycles. Another. Halloween. Christmas. Camping. Birthday parties. We were everywhere. Every summer. Every holiday. Nearly every picture included both of us. His voice cracked slightly. I forgot. I looked at him. What? I forgot how much time we spent together. He kept turning photographs over. Faster now. As if trying to recover years all at once. My mom. He smiled sadly. She took pictures of everything. I picked up another photograph. 2 boys sitting on the dock. Writing something into the wood with a pocket knife. Cody. He looked over. I showed him the picture. It was the same fence post we'd seen yesterday. The carving. Our +C. His eyes widened. We made that. I know. I completely forgot. So did I. Neither of us realized how much time had passed. The afternoon sunlight had shifted across the workshop floor. The photographs surrounded us. Pieces of 2 childhoods scattered everywhere. Cody picked up one last picture. He stared at it longer than all the others. What? He turned it toward me. It was taken at the lake. The 2 of us couldn't have been older than 13. Our arms were thrown over each other's shoulders, both smiling directly at the camera. On the back, written in blue ink, were 6 simple words. Best friends forever. Neither of us spoke. After everything we'd forgotten, those words somehow hurt the most, because forever had quietly turned into nearly 10 years of silence. And neither of us had even realized how much we'd lost until we found each other again. Neither of us touched the photographs for a long time. The workshop was silent except for the occasional creak of the old wooden beams overhead. I kept looking at the picture in my hands. 2 boys, 13 years old, certain the world would never separate them. Funny how wrong children could be. Cody finally broke the silence. I kept waiting for you. I looked up. What? After graduation. His voice was quiet now. I thought you'd come back for Christmas. My chest tightened. I wanted to, but you didn't. I slowly shook my head. I got a job 2 weeks after moving. I know. You knew. My mom told me. He smiled faintly. She always asked your parents how you were doing. I hadn't known that. Then college became work. He nodded. And work became your life. Pretty much. He looked down at the photograph again. I was angry. At me. For a while. I swallowed. I didn't know. I figured. He stood and walked toward the open workshop door. The afternoon breeze carried the smell of fresh-cut grass inside. I wrote you once. I frowned. You did. 3 times. What? You never answered. I never got any letters. He turned around slowly. Seriously. I nodded. My parents moved 6 months after I left. His eyes widened. Oh. They forgot to forward some mail. He leaned against the doorframe. I thought. He laughed softly. I thought you'd decided you were done with this town. I wasn't done with you. The words escaped before I could think about them. He looked at me. Really looked at me. I just thought you were happier there. I was trying to survive there. His expression softened. That's different. It is. He disappeared into the farmhouse for a minute. When he returned, he was holding a small tin box. I forgot about these too. He placed it on the workbench between us. Inside were folded papers, ticket stubs, friendship bracelets, marbles, little treasures only kids thought were valuable. At the bottom sat 3 unopened envelopes. My name was written across the front. Ryan Brooks. In handwriting I recognized instantly. Cody. I never mailed them. I looked at him. I thought you said. I wrote 6. I mailed 3. These. He smiled awkwardly. I couldn't decide whether they sounded stupid. I picked up the first envelope. The paper had yellowed with age. The date in the corner read, October 3rd, 9 years earlier. You can read them. You sure? He nodded. I probably couldn't if I tried. I carefully unfolded the first letter. Hey, Ree. School is boring without you. Coach still keeps calling me Chase even though I told him not to. Your dad fixed Mom's truck yesterday. She said your mom misses you. You better come back for Christmas because I still owe you a rematch in basketball. I finally beat your high score on that zombie game. Only by 12 points. Don't act impressed. Chase. I laughed quietly. You were so competitive. I still am. I believe that. The second letter was shorter. You didn't come home. Hope college is worth it. I miss hanging out. Mom says you're probably busy. She's probably right. Anyway, don't forget this place. Chase. I looked away before opening the third. It had never been sealed. The handwriting looked less confident. More rushed. I almost called today. Then I realized I don't even know if your number still works. Everything keeps changing here. Emma says people grow apart. I hope she's wrong. Anyway, if you ever come back, I'll probably still be here. Chase. I folded the letter carefully. Neither of us spoke. I should have called. He shrugged. I should have tried harder. I changed my number. I know that now. I kept thinking I'd visit. What stopped you? I smiled sadly. Life. He nodded. Yeah. Life. The word sounded heavier now than it had when we were 17. Back then it had meant opportunity. Now it meant years disappearing without permission. I have something to show you. He led me behind the workshop toward a line of old oak trees. At the edge of the property stood the remains of a treehouse. Not much was left. A few weathered boards. Half a ladder. The outline of a platform. I stopped walking. No way. You remember? Of course. We built this. With your dad. And almost fell through the roof. He laughed. You actually did. You laughed first. I definitely laughed first. We climbed the old ladder carefully. The platform groaned but held. The view stretched across the orchard toward the lake. Exactly like I remembered. I used to think this was the highest place in the world. So did I. We stood there quietly. The wind rustled through the leaves. For a moment, neither of us was 26. We were 12 again. 2 kids planning impossible futures from a treehouse that barely stayed standing. I missed you. Cody said it so quietly I almost didn't hear him. I looked over. He wasn't looking at me. He was looking toward the lake. I didn't even realize how much. He stopped. Until yesterday. Something tightened in my chest. I missed you too. This time he looked at me. Neither of us smiled. Neither of us needed to. After nearly 10 years apart, the friendship we'd both believed was gone forever hadn't disappeared. It had simply been waiting for someone to remember where it began. We stayed in the treehouse until the sun began to disappear behind the hills. Neither of us seemed eager to climb down. So, Cody said eventually. So, we missed almost 10 years. Yeah. That's a long conversation. I laughed. It might take a while. I'm not in a hurry. Something about the way he said it made me smile. The following week settled into an unexpected routine. Every morning I helped Dad at the hardware store. Every afternoon somehow I ended up at Bennett Farm. Sometimes we worked. Sometimes we talked. Sometimes we did both. Felt strangely natural. As though those missing years had become a chapter we'd accidentally skipped rather than an entire decade. You've gotten stronger, Cody said one afternoon as I helped him move lumber into the workshop. You remember? You couldn't carry one of these boards. I was 13. You complained the entire time. I still complain. That's true. I bumped his shoulder with mine. You've changed too. Oh, you smile more. He looked genuinely surprised. I do. Now that you remember me. For a brief second, he looked away. Then he smiled again. Maybe I was right. One evening, Emma found us repairing an old wooden fence. She leaned against the truck with folded arms. This is getting ridiculous. Cody looked up. What is? You too. I frowned. What about us? You've spent every day together this week. We're catching up. I noticed. She grinned. I've also noticed something else. Cody sighed. Emma. What? You've both started finishing each other's sentences. We looked at one another. Then both answered at exactly the same time. No, we don't. Emma burst into laughter. Exactly. A few days later, Mom asked the question I had been expecting. So? I looked up from dinner. So? How's Cody? I smiled despite myself. He's good. Only good. What answer are you hoping for? She shrugged innocently. I'm just asking. Dad snorted into his coffee. No, she isn't. Mom ignored him. You seem happier. I've just been spending time with an old friend. She smiled. I know. I stared. What? I've seen your face this week. What about it? I haven't seen that smile since high school. I didn't know how to answer. Friday afternoon, Cody showed up at the hardware store. Dad spotted him first. Well, Cody smiled. Mr. Brooks, you here for supplies? Actually, he glanced at me. I was hoping to borrow Ryan. Dad looked between us for exactly 1 second. Take him. Dad. What? We're working. He looked at the nearly empty shop. No, we're not. Cody tried not to laugh. My father pointed toward the door. Go. I rolled my eyes. You're unbelievable. I've been called worse. Outside, Cody was still smiling. Your dad likes me. He always did. He stopped walking. Always. The word hung between us. Neither of us had fully adjusted to remembering everything. Sometimes we'd casually say something that belonged to the past, and both of us would pause, still getting used to the fact that our shared history had returned. Where are we going? It's a surprise. I hate surprises. No, you don't. I really do. He looked at me. You never did. I blinked. I forgot that. I didn't. He drove 20 minutes north until the road became gravel. Finally, he parked near a clearing overlooking the valley. No way. I climbed out. The old overlook. Our old overlook. We used to ride our bikes here almost every weekend. I haven't been here in years. I whispered. I come sometimes. You do. When I need to think. We walked toward the edge together. The entire valley stretched beneath us. Ashwood looked tiny from up here. I used to think we'd both leave. I looked at him. You remember that? You wanted New York. I changed my mind. I wanted anywhere. You stayed. I did. No regrets. He thought about it for a long moment. I used to think I had regrets. And now? He looked toward the town below. Now I'm not so sure. As the evening grew darker, conversation became quieter, more personal. Can I ask you something? I said. You can ask. Why did you stop using Chase? He smiled faintly. When you left. He hesitated. Everyone kept calling me Chase. I frowned. So? It reminded me of you. My chest tightened. So I switched to Cody. He laughed softly. It seemed easier. I didn't know what to say. 4 years. Every time someone spoke his childhood name, it had reminded him of me. I never told anyone that. You just did. Yeah. He looked out across the valley again. I guess I don't mind you knowing. The silence that followed wasn't awkward. It was full of things neither of us needed to explain. For the first time since coming back to Ashwood, I realized something that scared me a little. I wasn't counting the days until I left anymore. Instead, I was quietly hoping there would still be enough time to discover who Cody had become while we'd been apart. The drive back from the overlook was quieter than the drive there. Not uncomfortable, just thoughtful. The kind of silence that only exists between people who no longer feel the need to fill every moment with conversation. When we reached the farm, neither of us got out immediately. The truck engine ticked softly as it cooled. "I forgot something," Cody said. "What?" He smiled. "Our promise." I frowned. "What promise?" He laughed. "You seriously don't remember?" "I've forgotten a lot of things. When we were 14, we buried a time capsule." I stared at him. "No." "Yes." "Where?" He pointed toward the old oak tree behind the workshop. "You insisted we'd open it in 10 years. I laughed. "We missed the deadline. By almost 2 years. Close enough." The ground beneath the oak tree was harder than either of us expected. After 20 minutes of digging, my shoulders already ached. "I think you picked the worst possible spot." "I didn't." "You absolutely did. You were the one holding the shovel." "I was 14. You were bossy." "I still am." He smiled. "That part definitely didn't change." Finally, the shovel hit something solid. A dull metallic sound echoed through the evening air. "There." Together we cleared away the dirt. An old metal lunchbox slowly appeared. Rust covered the corners, but the lid was still intact. Neither of us opened it immediately. It suddenly felt strangely important. "You do it," Cody said. "No. It was your idea. It was ours." He looked at me for a second, then carefully lifted the lid. Inside were exactly the kinds of treasures two 14-year-old boys believed were priceless. Baseball cards, old movie tickets, a cheap plastic compass, 2 friendship bracelets, a toy car missing one wheel, a photograph of us sitting on the dock, and 2 folded letters. One with my name, one with his. We wrote letters to ourselves? I guess we did. He handed me mine. The paper had yellowed with age. I unfolded it carefully. "Dear future Ryan, if you're reading this, I hope you finally got taller than Chase." I laughed immediately. "What?" "You'll see." I kept reading. "I hope you're still friends. If you aren't, that's probably because one of you did something stupid. If it was Chase, don't stay mad forever because he's too stubborn to say sorry first." Across from me, Cody started laughing. "What?" "My letter says the exact opposite." I looked up. "It does." He nodded, still smiling. "If Ryan's the one being stubborn, remind him that he always forgives people eventually." We both laughed harder. Neither of us could believe it. Even at 14, we already knew each other that well. I looked back at my letter. The final line was written in larger letters than the rest. "Don't forget your best friend." I slowly folded the paper again. "I almost did." "So did I." Neither of us smiled that time. The next week passed faster than any week I could remember. Mom noticed. Dad noticed. Emma definitely noticed. "You've got that look," she said one afternoon while helping Cody organize invoices. "What look?" "The one people get when they're trying not to think about saying goodbye." I stopped writing. "I leave Friday." "I know." She smiled gently. "He knows too." Thursday evening Cody called. "You busy?" "Not really. Come to the lake." "I'll be there." When I arrived, he was already sitting on the end of the dock. Exactly where we'd spent countless summer evenings as kids. I sat beside him. For a while we watched the water without speaking. "You leave tomorrow?" "Yeah." He nodded. "I've been thinking. Dangerous." "It usually is." I smiled. "What about when you first came back?" He laughed quietly. "I walked right past you." "So did I." I looked straight at my best friend and thought he was a stranger. He shook his head. "I still can't believe it." "I can." He looked over. "Really? We weren't kids anymore." "No. We became different people." He nodded slowly. But underneath." I smiled. "We were still us." I was scared. The words surprised me. "What?" "When you left." He didn't look at me. "I never told you." "I know." I thought you'd forget this place. I almost did. I thought you'd forget me. I swallowed. I never forgot you. I just forgot your face. He laughed softly. I guess I forgot yours too. The silence that followed wasn't sad. It was honest. The next morning my truck was packed before sunrise. Mom hugged me twice. Dad hugged me once. Emma came by with homemade cookies from Cody, even though she admitted she'd baked them herself because he couldn't. Finally, Cody walked over. Neither of us knew exactly what to say. You'll come back. I will. You promise. I've already broken one promise. He smiled. I'm not letting that happen again. I held out my hand automatically. He looked at it, then laughed. We're really doing a handshake? I don't know. It feels wrong. So what feels right? Without answering, he pulled me into a hug. It lasted only a few seconds, just long enough to make 10 lost years feel a little smaller. When we stepped back, he smiled. There you are. What? My best friend. I smiled back. I've been here the whole time. The drive out of Ashwood felt different from the drive in. When I arrived, I thought I was coming home for a few weeks to help my parents. I left with something I hadn't expected to find. Not a new beginning. Something much rarer. A second chance. Sometimes life doesn't bring people together by introducing someone new. Sometimes it quietly returns the person you thought you'd lost forever. Not because either of you was looking, but because, somewhere beneath the years, beneath new names, new cities, and new faces, some friendships never really end. They simply wait for the day two old friends finally recognize each other again.